This is a free sample of the book Making Women Want You by Cairo Copeland. The first half of this book is posted right here on YouTube, free for everyone to listen to. If you like this content and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/women. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/women.
Intro. What if women just don't want you? Being one of the more optimistic guys in the Red Pill Consortium, it's very out of character for me to write something that sounds so black pill. The title of the book suggests that women don't want men from the start, thus any man seeking one already starts from a disadvantage. The series that this book is first in is even titled in a somewhat black pill manner, Dating Success in the Misandrist West. This is not to suggest that the world hates males to organize their holocaust. The genesis of this title comes from the fact that many of the pain points in the mating market today seem to disproportionately affect males, such as flaking, ghosting, shallow judgmentalism, exploitation, etc. This is not to endorse the black pill nihilism, it is only to acknowledge a reality that many guys have to spend years learning the hard way. The playing field is no longer even. The very first book I ever wrote was on the subject of allure because I recognized how difficult it was to get a date, let alone laid, further let alone a girlfriend, this day and age. I came to this realization from hearing the horror stories of my clients when I was a personal trainer. 2 years and 10 books later, I thought I had written enough on the subject, but I was wrong. I attempted to move on to other subjects like finance and philosophy. Much as I love writing about them, my most successful books are about women, because one half of the population wants the other half so badly. And sadly, even today, I see that the second half hardly wants anything to do with the first. Ironically, without women, there'd be no need to study finance nor read up on it. That's because there wouldn't even be a need to make money. The reason being is that everything that exists in the world today exists because of male desire for female intimacy. Why do men risk their lives on high-rise construction? To make money? Sure, but what do they plan to do with that money? The money itself is not the end. If we peel enough layers off the onion, we'll find that the reason they want money is to impress the women in hopes of winning intimacy from them. One moment from the first season of the HBO show Westworld said it best when Teddy tells Clementine, a prostitute who just made him an offer, he tells her, "I'd rather earn a woman's affection than pay for it," to which Clementine's manager, Maeve, laughs and says, "You're always paying for it. Our prices are fixed and posted right there on the door." No truer words have been spoken. If we look at all that guys do to appease, entertain, and allure women, it all comes at some sort of cost. It's not always a money cost, but it can carry a price in terms of time, energy, attention, effort, focus, and emotion. A man pays in some way, shape, or form for each moment of intimacy he has with a woman. Even those few amazing males that make it seem effortless, the ones that live on God mode like Hugh Hefner, Andrew Tate, and the like, they only seem to be reaping the fruits effortlessly because they already paid for it earlier in life. They worked hard early on to become rich men that could afford the lifestyle with harems of women. And make no mistake, their reason for working was no different from the poor drug dealer on the streets of the ghetto hustling to make bank. He's trying to earn money for the down payment on his proportion for the female intimacy that he can afford. This is true of all work done by mankind worldwide. Artists, architects, musicians, metallurgists, medical researchers, carpenters, contractors, actors, engineers, etc. All the hard work done to earn every dollar beyond basic living needs has the same motivational force behind it. The hope of earning intimacy and sexual access to women. This is why men get so much meaning and fulfillment from success at work that many women do not. As much as work sucks, and it really sucks in corporate America for sure, Men find a way to persevere through the suck because the trophy at the end of the finish line for them is well worth it to them. However, for women, this is not the case. They don't go to work in hopes of impressing and winning over a man. Despite the evils accomplished by the fempowerment mandate, the main one being the fact that it convinced women that work was the most important thing in their lives, women still aren't as ambitious and money-driven as men. And it's understandable why. As men earn more money, options with the opposite sex increase. As women earn more money, options decrease. But what this contrast between the sexes and their willingness to do undesirable work further proves is how much more men want women than women want men. A false belief has been peddled by dating coaches, one that even I fell for in my early days of being a coach about the genders. A false belief that says women want men as much as men want women. In context, many dating coaches push the belief because they were hoping to instill more contrived confidence in their clients and get them to believe in themselves. At one point in human history, it may have been true that women liked men just as much, but the past several decades have witnessed a massacre by the fempowerment mandate, dishing out indoctrination from age 5 until death that men are unnecessary and bad. Not only are the women of today convinced that they don't need no man, but that they don't want one either. The most amazing swindle in the history of socioeconomics was done when women were convinced by their feminist sisters that the most important thing in life was not other people, not family, friends, a husband, or children. Instead, they convinced women that a more fulfilling life was to be found pursuing bullshit degrees, low-paying careers, vanity social media clout, and a parasitical political cause. Many female souls expend their few fertile years despising males to attain these life-wasting pursuits. However, even without the propaganda for foolish pursuits spread by the mandate, plenty of other elements in today's world are severing the once sacred bonding propensity between male and female. The well-oiled wealth creation engine of the world today that runs on all cylinders, which is free enterprise economics and technological advancements, governance by democratic republics and things of that nature. This machine created a world rich enough to afford a welfare state, thereby eliminating any economic dependence on men that once existed. And that's really a good thing, not just for how it's improved the world, but it's also good in the sense that all relationships between men and women are voluntary, as they should be. But voluntary neutrality, sadly, is not the starting ground we find ourselves in. Instead of an even playing field where everyone is given a fair chance, males begin their happenstance from an initial setback. Women are conditioned to view us with suspicion at best, or view us as adversaries at worst. Ask yourself this: how many women have you met that claim they have been sexually assaulted by a man? In the last 10 years, I have not met a single woman that didn't claim it happened to her. Likely, you've seen the same. While we've all met an increasing number of victims, we've not met an equally increasing number of victimizers. Why is that? That is because the media, academia, politicians, activists, and definitely social media have convinced every woman that being approached by a guy they don't like is the same thing as assault. Being undressed by unwelcomed eyes is equivalent to being forcibly undressed for real. With the made-up statistics they have about assault on college campuses, the 1 in 5 stat, that makes college campuses more sexually violent than Rwanda. We all know the statistics are made up, because if there's that much sexual assault occurring on college campuses, no rational parent would ever send their daughter to school until the madness was stopped. But no one questions the made-up statistics for fear of being condemned. Nevertheless, the lies have had their intended effect. We don't trust males by default anymore. All males are monsters until proven otherwise. You've likely felt this everywhere you go. The suspicion of bad intentions hangs over your head at all times. Unless you had a woman with you, when you go somewhere, people assume the worst about you, and you can feel those assumptions coming from them like heat. You can't get mad about this. Women have been conditioned to think you're a violent, sexually abusive monster ever since they were girls. In some cases, the conditioning was done by their parents with the best of intentions. Other cases, it was done by the media and academia with the worst of intentions. Even without the media and academia doing what they do, the males of today's world do themselves no favors. And I don't mean the few that do commit horrid acts of sexual assault. Yes, they exist, and there are enough of them for every woman to have a reasonable suspicion of males. But there's something else guys do that fuck it up for everyone. And it's quite the opposite of forcefulness. It is subservience. The word for these males is simp. A simp is a guy that uses subservience to women as a covert sexual strategy. He'll go above and beyond in doing favors for her in hopes of getting sex. He'll throw money at her by paying her bills at her request, or by being a sugar daddy that dishes out an allowance. Or he'll just send her sweet nothings by text and direct messages. Ultimately, what these guys do is throw compliments, money, undeserved adoration, and favors toward a woman just because she exists. In their world, she's great because she exists. They do this with every woman they wish to be with, and double down especially on the ones they believe are attainable for them. Social media simps have elevated women's egos to unreasonable heights and made them drunk with power too great for them to wield responsibly. Further, women are horrifically repulsed by the behavior of simps as they represent the antithesis of all the things they'd like in a male, such as dominance, strength, composure, power, respectability. The simp possesses none of these characteristics. In fact, they possess the opposite: submission, weakness, instability, impotence, and inadequacy. When women are inundated with males that display these behaviors most often, they come to the conclusion that all males act this way. Since they find these males so repulsive, they lump all males in this category and believe most, if not all, are specimens they will find repulsive as well. So again, every male now starts off with a setback in the uneven playing field. This deadly combination of the anti-male media and the simp pandemic has rendered old forms of mate-seeking obsolete. Your grandfather probably won over your grandmother by being a model citizen, hard worker, actively involved in his community, went to church on Sundays, brought her flowers for each date. Those days are gone forever. How bad is it? Well, let's look at the hard data. Women swipe right on only 1 in every 100 male profiles. That was a study done by the Washington Post. And only 1% of those right swipes ever get a date. Online dating success literally makes you a 1 in 10,000 winner. While that sounds pretty damning and supports the thesis that women don't really want men, we could also ask the women themselves. One CNBC poll asking women about their life priorities indicated that finding a man is ranked 4th on a woman's list of goals, behind career, education, and financial stability, or paying off student loans. Even kids don't come until 7th place. This is true even while they don't know that all males seek women for their feminine youth and beauty. Women still delay using these gifts to attract a man that could make the items higher up on the list no longer a worry. Marrying or just getting into a relationship with a high-value man would alleviate any concerns about financial stability for sure. Both their actions and words seem to indicate they want little to do with men. Still, the dating coaches and even PUAs continue to say the opposite. Worse yet, sex coaches, Caitlin V and the like, would have guys believe that women want sex as much as guys do. But that myth is easily busted by the fact that if women liked sex as much as men, we'd overpopulate the earth. It's no mistake that 99% of all prostitution transactions are males paying females to have sex with them. If they wanted it as much as males, why would this be so disproportionate? Similarly, the majority of all porn consumers are male. Even when it comes to porn showcasing males, the majority of the consumers are male. The audience for that is gay males. When I was a stripper, the majority of the patrons that regularly visited the strip club I worked at, the majority of them were gay males. Males have 18 times the amount of sex hormones that females have. Therefore, biologically, males have 18 times the desire for sex. I've had female bodybuilder friends taking testosterone supplements to get to male levels, and they would tell me that they were losing their minds with how horny it made them. They didn't understand how we could handle it. One even told me she was masturbating 9 times a day and still didn't feel sexually content. I remember telling her, "Hey, welcome to a guy's life, honey." A DNA study conducted by the University of Arizona suggests that only 5.9% of all males reproduced all throughout human history. Nearly every female has reproduced. The entirety of human history may not be fair because many males were slaves or casualties of war as boys, and the rulers had harems and concubines for their pleasure. But looking at just the last 1,000 years, only 1 in 5 men got to pass on their genes. Further, when it comes to marriages, you'd think a woman saying yes to a man as her forever match would confirm her interest, but it does not, as evidenced by the 50% divorce rate and the 75% initiation rate by women. Even the marriages that don't end in divorce have a low 14% satisfaction rate, meaning that 86% of women don't really like the guy they married. Even a marriage is not a firm indicator of interest. Lastly, you don't need these stats to know this is true. All you need to do is ask yourself this: have most women you've expressed interest in treated you with kindness or reciprocal interest? Or have they treated you with indifference, disgust, exploitation, or even hostility? The black pill is not born out of randomness. While their conclusions are wrong, their origins are valid. There's a good reason these doomers exist. The truth of the matter is that the disparate sex drives flood women an annoying amount of unwanted attention, which repulses them further from males. The anti-male sentiment they are indoctrinated with, coupled with the endless approaches by simps they are repulsed by, come at an enormous cost to all males in making them less desirable to women. These statistics, no matter how accurate they are and how logical males are with their acceptance of reality, do nothing to ease your inner pain over the matter, though. Deep down, every guy is hardwired to crave female intimacy, and when you don't get it, you feel a pain inside. Like the pain when you're dumped, rejected, flaked on, friend-zoned, ghosted, and discarded. This pain is purely evolutionary. If males didn't feel that intense pain throughout our ancestral past, the human race would not have continued on. While it's merely functional for the perpetuation of our species, this same pain is so intense that it even has driven guys to take their own lives when it becomes clear they won't be alleviated of it, or have just experienced too damn much of it. Adding insult to injury, the sex sells pornographic culture that appears in everything from commercials to video games serves as a reminder to sexless males of what they're not experiencing, thereby increasing their thirst. Further, there are social imperatives that state you as a male are a failure if you cannot win a female over. You feel as though you are not welcomed in this world, nor are you in good standing with society when you are single. At some point, your singlehood was probably even rubbed in your face to dismiss you, like, haha, look who doesn't have a girlfriend. While thirst is amped up in males, The same culture tampers down on desire by females. They create Mary Sue heroes to convince them they are perfect on their own. They create Disney princesses to convince them that males should bust their asses off for a hope in hell of winning her hand. They produce hoe-praising music like Cardi B and Hot Girl Summer to convince them that no male is worth their loyalty. Maybe if you're a Chad, you can get some interest, but the average Joe Smith, John Jones, or Bob Bobson is pretty much invisible to most women. And if they try to make themselves visible, they respond with vitriol. In short, life is hard for the single man when it comes to dating. The list of requirements and things you must do to even qualify are far greater than they've ever been before. All your grandfather had to do was be a good man that brought your grandmother flowers and took her on a few dates. Now you must be rich, tall, good-looking, socially calibrated, high status, interesting, and have an extensive social circle just to qualify. Still, that's only to have a chance. You may get your chance, but then blow it by making one wrong move. Fuck up just once with the woman you're pursuing and she can easily replace you because there are hundreds of guys in line behind you. Her phone is like a Netflix library of males that will drop everything to be with her at her beck and call. And once you've locked her down and solidified a relationship, you're still not done. You need to keep things interesting and amazing for her. She has no desire to work through problems like they did back in the old days. She has no need either, because if you run into undesirable problems, all she has to do is replace you with a backup guy that is waiting in line. This brings many guys to the point of going full MGTOW, which stands for men going their own way. These guys have sworn off women entirely because the black pill reality is just far too great, and the burdens of performance necessary to attain and retain women are too much for them to bear. It's completely understandable why many guys go this route. These MGTOWs may come to know a more peaceful life for a time. Certainly they'll be happy for the fact that they're not getting yelled at, stood up, dumped, disrespected, and distressed with drama, but the peace and happiness still have limitations. I'm not here to argue for or against MGTOW. Personally, I think every guy should at least spend a few years in his 20s sworn off women so he had the time to focus to build himself up. But what I can say is that sex does wonders for the male mind and life satisfaction. After all, there's a reason we seek it so fervently. From my coaching days, I would take before and after pictures of my clients. When they first signed up, they looked so terribly sad, like emo kids a few days away from suicide. But after months to years of working with me, after attaining a sex life they could only dream of, the smiles on their faces looked to have left a permanent impression, like Jack Nicholson's Joker. From my own personal experience, one story says it best. I was a loner in my early 20s with no sex life. Once, during that time, I remember spilling something in the kitchen and losing my shit, shouting, screaming, cussing my head off, and tearing the kitchen apart with anger. I was already severely irritated that my life was not as enjoyable as it was for other guys. I was also upset back then for the fact that I was out of shape and unhealthy, coupled with the fact that work sucked and I was broke. This spill was the last thing necessary to set me off. Fast forward to 10 years later, when I was in my 30s and maintaining a harem of multiple beautiful girlfriends that all knew about each other and were okay with the arrangement. The rest of life was going good too, with my business, fitness, and money situation. But the best thing about this time was the fact that I was having a sex marathon with one of my girlfriends at least 3 times a week. They'd come over, and we'd spend all night having sex. No warm-up date necessary to wine and dine her first. We just jumped right into sex and went on for hours and hours. I remember it just like yesterday when it happened. I accidentally spilled something in the kitchen again. It went everywhere and was an even worse spill than the one from before. A huge mess. But I didn't yell, scream, cuss, or break anything in anger like I did before back when I was in my 20s. I actually cleaned it up with a smile. And I can only attribute The change in attitude and demeanor to the fact that I was getting laid regularly and having my sexual cravings satisfied often. That is the power of sexual satisfaction and what it can do for the guys that acquire it. That's why it is perfectly reasonable and possibly even moral to go after it, so long as you're doing it the ethical, old-fashioned way. Imagine the angers and evils out there in the world committed by males who otherwise would not be committing them if they were just getting laid. Imagine the alleviation to the stress and misery that sex can provide. Wouldn't a world filled with much more consensual, satisfying sex be a happier world? I sure think so. Even a microcosm of the world as small as a marriage is dramatically improved by more sex. Also, it's worth noting that marriages are dramatically damaged by a lack of sex. So even while the odds are stacked heavily against you in the pursuit of women, I still say it's worth pursuing for this reason. Few things on earth will add to life satisfaction more than bringing a new woman to bed with you. Fewer things will ever compare to seeing excitement in her eyes and hearing it in her voice just from having you around her. This book will show you how to make that happen, despite all the odds stacked against you, just for the fact that you're male. This is how to perfect the craft of allure, making women want you. But first, we gotta cover this here to appease the lawyers. A disclaimer and a caution. You are responsible for your own actions and behavior. None of this book is considered legal, personal, medical, or financial advice. By continuing to read this book, you hereby indemnify and hold the author, publisher, and parent company, Reinvent Ideal, LLC, as well as its directors, officers, agents, attorneys, owners, employees, and successors, and assigns harmless from any loss, liability, claim, or demand, including reasonable as well as unreasonable attorney's fees, from any loss, liability, damage, cost arising from, or in any way related to the contents of this book. You accept full responsibility and liability for actions and results from using any products, services, or suggestions made inside this book and its supplemental resources. Reinvent Ideal LLC specifically disclaims any liability, loss, risk, personal or otherwise, incurred as a consequence, directly or indirectly, of the use and application of any techniques or contents of this book or manual and supplemental materials provided. You are voluntarily participating in these activities and assume all risks of harming yourself that might occur, and acknowledge it is your responsibility to decide what you want to follow and if you want to follow the contents of this book or not. You are responsible for yourself and release all liability from Reinvent Ideal LLC and its owners by continuing to listen. Alright, we got that taken care of to appease the lawyers. So, if you're a litigious motherfucker, fuck you. I don't want you listening. Go ahead and refund this to Audible. Thank you. Now let's continue.
Thank you for listening to this free sample of the book, Making Women Want You, by Cairo Copeland. If you enjoyed it and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/women. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/women.